This client spent 8 hours in my chair getting her hair bleached, and even with my discount, she ended up paying almost $1,000 for this one singular service today. So I'm going to take you guys through everything that I did, what I feel like I could have changed for future appointments, what I liked about what I did, and everything in between. So if you want to see that, then stick around. This is what we're dealing with today for the most part. We have very, very, very dark, like level 2, level 3 roots, and we have strong banding for a couple of inches right after those roots, and then we have very, very blonde hair. What this client wants is she wants to be platinum blonde. She wants to be Targaryen, white blonde. She wants platinum. And so my initial plan was to separate the hair into two halves. This whole back section is one half, and the entire top and front sections are another half. And initially, my plan was going to be to do one whole half, let it lift all the way, rinse it out, and then do another half of the hair. Let it process all the way, and then rinse it out. But things change, so I'll show you guys how that all happened. I also want to go over the condition of her hair that she started with beforehand, because she had some pretty intense breakage. If you look at the ends of her hair there, some pieces go like 5-6 inches longer than other pieces. And I noticed this, so I wanted to show you guys kind of like, slow her down, more close up. This breakage is all over her hair. It's everywhere, where like some ends are significantly longer than others. So keep that in mind for the end of the video when you see the end results. Either way, that's just part of what we're dealing with today. This client has a crazy amount of hair. If you guys didn't see that already, I'm having to use so much product on her, as well as K18, which is what I'm applying right now. For those of you who don't know, K18 is molecular repair. It's not a protein mask. It's going to go help protect her hair and repair it as it's being lightened anyways. It is the best of the market. It's the creme de la creme. If you can get anything to protect your hair or to protect your client's hair, if you're a hairdresser, get K18. That's what I put my stamp of approval on. I thought it was a shtick, but it's really not. It is great stuff. And I use it for all of my color corrections, especially high-risk ones like this. What I wanted to make clear here too is I really put K18 everywhere, especially on the areas here where the banding is that I'm going to be putting my lightener on for the longest. We're going to do some overlapping and all of that. We want to prevent breakage as much as possible. So again, that's where I've condensed the most product onto it. You can see how hard and long these roots are. These are so intense. Her hair has grown out for 6 to 8 months, somewhere in there. And this is what some people get in like a year. This is very fast growing hair, and it's super, super dark. And when hair is very, very dark and they want it to go quite light, you really gotta let it sit there for a very long time with lightener. So I did express to my client many times, if you're feeling any kind of like discomfort beyond something that is a little irritation, please let me know, because obviously with bleach being on your scalp, it's going to feel a little itchy, it's going to feel a little warm, maybe a little hot, but we don't want you to be in any kind of actual pain. So if you are in pain, please tell me. We'll stop the process right away, and we'll make sure that we're not getting any long-term damage to your scalp, because that can happen with services like this when you have to use a higher developer and leave it on for hours on someone's head. Now let's go into what I did for my mixing here today. I committed hair incest. And that is mixing two lines that are not supposed to be mixed together. I mixed Blonde Me by Schwarzkopf and Blondor by Wella. And the reason why I did that is because I need the lifting power of Schwarzkopf, but because I have such hard lines to deal with, I don't want my bleach to move at all, which is why I put Wella in there. So the Schwarzkopf is the power, and the Wella is the keep it in place. Like, it's making sure that nothing is moving. And as you can see, I am putting in a ton of Cool Additive. For those of you who don't know, Cool Additive is extra pigment that you can add to your bleaches, your lighteners. and it will kind of work as a toner while you're bleaching. It's just super incredible. It's a really fun product, but I only really like to use this on very, very dark natural colors because it is such an intense pigment. I have actually turned people who were naturally a dirty blonde, I've turned them blue with their roots using this stuff. So only use this on very dark natural hair because it will have such strong results that it's going to just tone this hair, but it will actually probably stain blue on anyone who's like a level 7 or higher. So let's get started into what we're doing here. We are utilizing our 20 volume and our bleach mixture. We're using equal parts of both the Wella and the Schwarzkopf, and I'm applying directly to her roots. And as you can see, I'm using more of like a painter brush, a feathered painter brush, a good one. And I'm gonna kind of zoom in here so you can really see how close it is I'm getting to that demarcation line. And yes, applying from scalp down to the demarcation line entirely. Now this is where this is gonna be a different service than you would see with other correction specialists. They would likely tell you to do the mids first and deal with all of the platinum blonding that needs to happen in there, and then to leave out a 1/4 inch around the scalp and go in and do that later. That is totally an awesome way to do it. That's totally fine. It's just not how I chose to do it for this. And I'm going to tell you why it's possible to do both options. So what I'm doing with this client is I am insulating every single tiny thin slice of her hair with a piece of foil that I have cut to the length that I need it to be at. And what I'm also doing, you'll probably notice, is that I'm actually not putting that foil up on the scalp. I'm pulling it about a 1/2 inch away from the scalp so that the scalp bleach won't overheat. I want to give it some breathing room and some air. And the reason why people tell you to do the scalp bleach after is because that first 1/2 inch along the scalp is going to be warmer and process faster than everything else along the head. If you've ever done a full bleach roots and just left it out to air, you will know what I'm talking about. You'll get hot roots. And hot roots happen because of the heat from the roots. It processes everything faster and brighter. So they tell you to not put on the roots at the same time as the mids and ends, but in this kind of case you can, because you're taking such teeny tiny thin sections that you're not worrying about insulation and saturation problems. And when you put a foil over it, it's keeping the warmth in there and it's making sure that the product doesn't dry out. And so leaving a little bit of room from the scalp allows that excess heat around the scalp to escape while also protecting everything beyond that first 1/2 inch. So if that makes any sense, it can be a little hard to describe that, but you want to basically go right up to that demarcation line where there's that previous bleach and feather it down, fully saturate every single piece. That's what took the longest, honestly, on this service, is to make sure that all those hairs were evenly coated and fully coated, and I didn't miss anything before putting down the piece of foil on top to make sure everything was totally insulated and warm, because we all know metal keeps warm things warm and cool things cool. So the heat from the back of her neck and from her back will warm up these foils and allow them to process just as fast as the roots, and if not just as fast, still pretty close. So again, this is something you can do. You just have to know what you're doing. You have to know the science behind hair, and this is another option for people if they're nervous about doing the mids separately from the roots. My initial plan, let's go over that. It was to do the hair into 2 halves. And the reason why it'd be that is because of the amount of hair she has. She has a crazy amount of hair. She has, like, honestly 4 heads worth of hair, in my opinion. And I was unsure about where I was going to go with this one. And the way that I based this service was, let's see how it goes, as I do with all of my color corrections, but let's have a couple of plans in place, which is where you need to start with every single color correction, is have multiple plans and start with one of them. Whatever one seems like the best plan, start with that, but have options, because if things turn sideways on you, you need a quick route, and to not have to sit there and deliberate for 30 minutes. You need to just move on to whatever that extra route is. So I started thinking, let's just do one full half and then the second full half, because she'll likely lift super quick with all of this hair, which was my thought process, is that her hair is so thick and condensed, it's going to keep all of the heat from her head in and process all of that black hair up to a level 10 super, super fast. And what I mean by super fast is I mean in an hour and a half, which doesn't sound fast, but it takes such a long time to apply this color. And if I get all the way up to the back, finish that, and then start the sides, and the back is done and ready, but the sides aren't done being applied, I'm in a bit of a pickle. So I wanted to make sure that if I got up to the end of the back and I was completed that I would be at probably a solid level 7 or an 8 if I was going to hold off on applying to the front. If it wasn't reached to a level 7 or an 8, then I would continue on with applying to the front, because the front can be a little faster than the back. But I wanted to make sure that I had a solid plan set ahead of me so that I don't run myself into a corner or a block or a difficult timing situation for myself. Luckily, I did finish this and found that the hair is actually lifting slower than anticipated. So that means that, yeah, I can apply the sides and the top immediately after and continue on with my service. And the way that I did it with the back going first is because of rinsability. Sometimes you might start with other areas first, but I want to be able to easily rinse her head if one area is finished before others, and that's why I did it this way. Let's go over the banding here, actually. That would be an important thing to go over. Her hair also, let's just be so clear about this. Her hair was not done badly by any person done before. This is my first time doing her hair. Whoever did it last time didn't do a bad job or anything, but I do think that things didn't go according to plan. Let's also keep in mind that our end results here today are not perfect. They are a correction, not a perfection. And with something like this, it's step by step if you want to be gentle on the hair. And as we've noticed, there's a ton of breakage in her hair. I don't know necessarily what caused that, if it was all at once or over time she just had over-processed hair, and throughout the years it's just all snapped at that one spot from the time it was over-processed. I don't really know. But let's go into the banding. The banding is from her last service with her last stylist. Don't know who it is, and if I did, I wouldn't tell anybody anyways. But her last stylist looks like they did her bleach route, and she had told me in the chair before we started our service, I don't want to do a shadow route. And I said, is that because you don't like how they look? And she said, yeah, I don't like how they look, and I find that it washes out fast anyways and then leaves this kind of darker color. And I looked at her hair, and that banding could be one of two options. It could be that the client was indeed lifted to a perfect level 10, and then a large shadow root was applied and it stained the hair, even though it was supposed to come out all the way. It didn't come out all the way, it just kind of faded. Or the other option is that her hair wasn't lifted to a perfect level 10. It was lifted to a 9, and then a shadow root was applied to kind of cover up the fact that it doesn't fully match. And then when the shadow root faded, we're just left with a brassy level 9 root. Now a level 9 is an amazing lift when you're going from like a level 2, 3 to a level 9. That's a really, really good lift, especially trying to avoid all the breakage as well, because what's below that level 9 is a level 10 lift. So that could have also been very scary for the stylist beforehand, is who knows how much experience she had, or maybe she's never done this girl's hair before, but it can be very scary when you're seeing the bleach look like it's lifted all the way and it's touching areas that have been bleached to a level 10 before. You just at some point have to make the call. So I think she just probably made the call a little too early. But there's only two ways to really handle this as well. If the hair hasn't been bleached light enough in the first place, it needs to be re-bleached with full strength lightener. I don't know how long I'd need to place this for, because I don't have a lot of experience with her hair up until today, but I was not willing to take the risk by putting full strength bleach on that banding. So I'll show you guys what I did do to kind of test the hair out with this service. That will come a little bit later. But there's also another option, is maybe you can run some lightener through it for a minute or so, or some very diluted lightener. And if it's old toner residue, that should lift out pretty quickly if it's a professional line. Unfortunately, because we still ended up with this banding at the end, even though we were able to brighten it up and lighten it up a little bit, some of it was pretty significant in there and still left a bit of a residue. You can see it in the final results when we get to that. But that just comes down to us being like, you know what, you win some, you lose some. And some days we just have to do what we can in one appointment, learn the hair. Let's not take too high of a risk. Let's not go overboard and put your hair at risk as snapping off at 4 to 5 inches long. Like, that would so not be okay. I think she'd rather have a little bit of banding than to have a pixie cut. And then next time when I'm doing her next set of roots, I can go into that banded area, put on a very gentle developer and lightener mixture while it's processing, and just give that the little bump that it needs. But I'm not willing to experiment with that first bit of brassiness today while I'm learning her hair. And I think that that's something that everyone should know is a reality that a lot of people face in their color corrections, is that we're working on one big area today, and we can't get everything fitted in perfectly to get rid of all the imperfections in your hair when you come in with hair that has this many imperfections. We can't get that all done in one single day because of the amount of hair you have and how big the goalpost is and how far it is away from what we currently have. We have one giant task in front of us, and we're going to focus all of our energy on doing that task well. And if I can say so myself, the roots that I did today were stunning. They were phenomenal. There was some issues throughout the rest of her hair that have been done by previous stylists that we're working on balancing out and evening out throughout her hair. But again, that's going to be stuff that's left for future appointments, because this first one was about just tackling this massive black hole in her head. We're going to talk really quickly about something that's kind of uncomfortable for me to discuss, but I feel like it is important. The pricing. I don't oftentimes reveal my pricing to a lot of people for many reasons, but today I am. I think it's important that everybody knows why this client was charged what she was charged, and how the hair industry works now. Over the last few years, I've seen a lot of hairdressers say, charge what you're worth. And while I do believe that, I do believe that some people aren't worth what they're charging. Some people are charging what they can get away with. But I think for something like this, when it comes down to you're a specialist at what you do, you are known for what you do, and you're hard to book in with because of what you do, that you can charge kind of what you're worth. Either way, for my color correction services, I am currently priced at $140 per hour. What that includes is all of the product necessary within the hour and my labor. So you're not being charged a product cost on top of that, other than K18 if it was to be an added on service. But let's go over what this client got charged today. Because I'm $140 an hour and we worked 8 hours on her hair, that would have amounted up to, let's see the math here, $1,120 before taxes. And then also the K18 treatment would have been an additional $50. But when I have my clients come into the chair and let me film them and everything, because I am taking a little bit of time to set up camera angles and whatnot, I want to make sure that they're not being charged for that, as well as give them a little extra something off of their pricing as a thank you for allowing me to use their likeness online. So I did discount her $15 per hour. So she was charged $125 per hour, and I gave her K18 treatment for free. And so then she was only charged $985. And so that's the pricing for her appointment today. Some people may find that that's a ridiculous rate to pay, and that's okay. Some people will find that $1,000 is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on your hair entirely at all for any reason, or maybe that my work wasn't worth it. That's okay to have those opinions. But some people also spend $5,000 on their hair, and they do that regularly. That's also okay. For this service here, because of how much product we use for her, like when you break it down into, if she was to be coming in on a regular appointment base and getting her roots touched up at a regular rate every 2 months, which people normally do when they've got bleach roots, she'd probably be charged around $300 per appointment. I would say minimum, with the amount of hair that she has, because my bleach roots currently starts at $180 and an additional bowl of lightener is $30, and she would need a minimum of 3 extra bowls to deal with the amount of hair she has. So it would round up to close to $300 every 2 months. She's been here, so this is between 6 or 8 months of growth. I can't remember which one she said, for her hair with her roots. So yes, this is more than what she was paying if it would have been every 6 months. But it's actually a deal for her if she is coming once every 8 months and this is her root growth. And it just makes more sense to do it this way for her, to grow it out for a good amount of time and then come in, get the whole thing done. This also is kind of a healthier way because I can go right up to where the banding is and deal with things with foils instead of having all the hair cloud up and get too hot and puff up all the lightener around her scalp and cause some banding or potential breakage. That's also something we don't want to deal with. Either way, my pricing is something, as you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, it's a little uncomfortable to talk about because I know people are going to just flame me on here for charging someone $1,000. But let's take into consideration the fact that I spent 8 hours bent over this client. That sounds so bad. I spent 8 hours essentially bending my back and hunched over this client's head. I never really once left her. I didn't get to have a break. I didn't get to have a sit down. I essentially just was constantly applying lightener, checking areas, reapplying, pulling product off, toning, putting on masks, etc. I didn't have a break all day. I spent 8 straight hours working on this client, and I spent a ton of money on product on her as well. So when you hear $140 an hour, you think, wow, that's what I pay for like an electrician or someone who does a trade. Well, hair is also a trade. It's a skill set. And when you've spent 10 years learning how to do this specific skill set, which is very high risk, a lot of people won't do it. And honestly, it's so much more work than it's worth for a lot of people. You have very few people who are willing to even do this. I am one of them, and I am known to do it well, so I'm going to charge what my price is. And again, if you want to just buy a bunch of bleach and go home and do this yourself, you're saving yourself a ton of money. Honestly, totally, go save that money. But just don't expect me to do it for you for 8 hours for a cheap rate, because I'm going to make what's worth my time. On a regular day, when I have my regular clients that come in for standard services, I don't bring in $1,000 on most days. But on those days, I also get breaks. And while my clients are processing, I get to deal with any other situation I have going on in the salon as the owner and manager of it. But she is paying a higher premium because I am spending 100% of my time, effort, and consciousness on her. I'm not in manager mode at all this day. I am only focused on my client. And so that's something that she is paying for because I'm a specialist at this. And while I have other things that I could be doing with my time, I am specifically choosing to focus all of my energy on her. So yeah, that's why I think that my pricing is fair and I think that it's okay. And I want to hear what you guys have to say about my pricing in the comments. So, sound off below. Tell me what you think. Yell at me a little bit if you need to. That's okay. Because this service is so specifically, uniquely designed for this client right here. What I'm doing here is I am pulling through any of her lightener that has already processed into that banded area using my Framar glove here. It's distributing the product evenly and I'm using it to scrape off and away the product from our area that's finished processing. This is part of the process that you need to get creative for. Not every client is going to need this with their extended root touch-up, but this is why this is a correction, because she has her extended root touch-up and she also has this banding that needs to be tackled. And again, because we're trying to be as careful as possible with it, we're using very old diluted bleach. This bleach has been sitting on her head, by the way, for hours now. It took me 3 hours to apply just the roots to her head, and then I immediately go in and I pull this down to put in any extra lightener or pull down old lightener that's going to be very gentle and very slow moving onto any banding, because I want to try to shift that banding just a tiny bit lift it up. Again, see if it's just going to pull out any old toner or if it really hasn't been lifted enough. This is going to tell us what it was. Turns out it actually wasn't lifted enough. So next time, again, we will be going in and handling that banding next time we do her roots. But this time was more of a learning curve of let's do this safely, let's test the area. And you know, we had like no breakage. Her hair was in very, very good shape when we were done our service. The breakage and whatever you see at the very ends of her hair were from beforehand that I showed you in the very beginning of the video. But you guys have seen my color correction videos. A lot of them are like this, where I have to do the roots and then pull color out from the back or rinse out. In this one, I'm doing a scrape down because, again, trying to bump up a little bit of that old darker yellow stuff. But each of these services are very unique to the client, and you don't know which step you're going to do next, but you have to be quick on your feet, come up with a plan, get creative with your chemicals, because again, this job is a chemistry-based job. We are using chemicals on people, and I know some people feel like, oh, this is a very artsy job. It is, but to me, this is chemistry before it is art. We have to be responsible with what we're using on people's hair and not take too high of a risk if we're not sure what we're dealing with here. As we've seen with some of my other videos, we've learned that lesson. And it's important to treat this as chemistry first, art second. Because art is the fun stuff, chemistry is being responsible. And this is what it all looks like when the back has been pulled out with the color. We haven't rinsed it yet, but again, I've been applying some very old bleach from the bowl onto some spots, and that is what I wanted to show you. That right there. Look at that. It's disgusting. Those little spots right there. This is again why I can't leave my client at all, because you put on the lightener in such a specific way and you're like, there's no way I missed any spots, and then you go and you find that. And so that's why I do this. I have to scrape the color out and then reapply to any areas I may have missed. And the reason why this spot was missed is because a few hairs there just got bunched together, so I have to actually comb them out with a comb. Because yeah, they decided to group together and form a little black hole in the hair. And that's why services like this are really annoying and frustrating, because you don't think that that is going to really show through, but it is the most obvious thing when all of the hair is a level 10 white platinum and you have a little chunk of pepper in the hair that won't go away, a little orange and brown chunk. It's so ugly, it's the worst. But yeah, you apply the roots once over and you think you're done after 3 hours. No, now you have to go back through it and check underneath every single piece, make sure everything's evenly saturated, it's all lifting evenly, there's no open spots to air that are drying out. Oh my gosh, it's such a big job. I can't stress that enough. Anyways, here we've rinsed out the back. Isn't this the most satisfying thing to look at? I'm applying the K18 mask, which is important to do. I've used the K18 Peptide Prep Shampoo as well. No conditioner. The K18 mask is doing my conditioning for me. And look at this image. This is so satisfying. Honestly, I had to pull out my phone and just take a picture of this because this is such a beautiful, beautiful lift. And that's because of the cool additive that I added in there. I don't even need to tone those roots. Look at them. Oh, this is so beautiful, and you're going to see it when it's all rinsed out too. And I wish I just left it, because then that's where things go wrong. That's right, things went wrong today. And I'm going to tell you what went wrong and what I would do to fix it. Look at how beautiful this raw lift is. You could tell where the roots were that I did. You can still see the banding, yes, but because everything is a raw lift and it's all on an equal playing field of tones and tonality, it's all warm, it all blends together and works together well. However, I put a toner on there, and the toners will reveal all of your impurities and imperfections. And the toner that I did today was Schwarzkopf Vibrance, and I did equal parts of the 9.519, 9.598, and 955. A 9.519 has a cendre violet tone, 9.598 has a violet red tone, and a 955 has a gold tone. The reason why I mix these all equal parts together with the 6-volume lotion is more sticky than the gel, and I want it to stick on certain areas of the hair. And what I'm doing is I'm applying it to her banding and mid-lengths first and fully combing it through to saturate, and then I will apply onto the roots. So the reason why I applied this toner is because I figured let's do 2 parts of a cool base toner and 1 part of a neutral warm. And the neutral warm is going to fill in her hair, and the cool is going to neutralize her hair. And so I want 2 parts cool, 1 part warm. And so with the cool tones, I didn't want to do something that had too much of a blue base or a green base. I wanted to do violet and pink. And violet and pink make more of a pearlescent tone and prevent the client from looking almost greenish. So that's why I went with the 9.5, 9.8, because it is just so beautiful and pearlescent. And the client loved the toner and how it looked on the roots when it was done. But this toner, unfortunately, was not quite strong enough to affect the banding. It was strong enough to put a beautiful tone on the roots and on the mids and ends. However, the banding in the middle was made more apparent because these roots, mids, and ends that were initially all warm are now warm and neutral cool. So you can see the warm against the neutral cool better than when you could see the warm against the warm, if that makes any sense. We gave her a cut. We went up to where she was comfortable. She said I could cut more, but she wouldn't love that. So I didn't. I'm not going to cut her hair to a point where she's not happy with the length anymore. She still wants long hair. Yes, there is still that broken stuff underneath and all throughout. I tried to layer her hair and get rid of as much damage as possible. And sometimes there's only so much that we can do to where the client is comfortable. And then we just say, you know what? Take good care of your hair, baby it for a while, and come back to me in a few months and we'll cut a few more inches off when it's grown a little longer and you'll be totally fine. So yes, we can see that. This is the before, by the way. Just wanted to refresh you guys because it's been a long time that I've been talking. And this is the after. You can see those mids and ends are still on the warmer side, but look at how beautiful these roots are. Anyways, if I was going to be putting on a different root, I'd put on 9.1, 9.5, 9.8, some 9.0, and 8.19. I feel like that has the amount of depth in color that would have gone over the full thing and equalized everything out and covered up all that banding. That's what I would change for next time. But overall, we had like no breakage. Her hair was so healthy. The roots lifted to a beautiful level 10 and it looked so gorgeous on her. And she said no one's ever gotten her that light. And she was so happy with her hair and it felt really great after too. So overall, I'd say I'm quite happy with this, even though there's some areas that we can improve on for next time. This is color correction, not color perfection. No. So I hope you guys like this video. Please tell me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear you sound off in the comments below. I know it was such a long video, but thank you guys for sticking with me. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe. It really supports the channel. It goes a long way if you guys tell other people you know about this channel. And yeah, let's get on to the next one next time. Have a great night, guys. Enjoy.